hear me? All right. So, thank you for joining us, everybody. My name's Seth. I'm from a local company called the Geekiverse. We do general pop culture media in Western New York. Movies, TV shows, comics, and video games. And our guest today is known for playing roles like the BS Man, there's some younger guys there, or James, and the angry video game nerd, is that what it is? I don't know. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, YouTube pioneer, filmmaker, independent pioneer himself, James Rolfe of Cinemassacre. So, James, second time in, you got a mic there? I think it should be working. Yeah. Second time in Buffalo, New York. You're here for Nickel City Con last year. How's Buffalo been treating you the second time around? Be able to see the city a little bit more this time?
Yeah, saw City. Ate the duck's wings this time. You sampled the death sauce.
Yeah. Tell us about the death sauce you sampled.
Well, it's very accurate. I was obviously asking for it. You know what you're getting if you're ordering the death sauce.
Yes.
We tried. You tried it. Justin tried it. Kieran and Nate tried it.
Yeah.
And we were all pretty affected by it. All of us we were like annihilated for like 15 minutes at the table, just talking about how hot it was.
Experiencing the phenomenon of eyeball sweat, which is something we didn't know.
Eyeball sweat. In other words, tears.
I guess.
Don't wipe your eyes. Don't wipe your eyes. As you keep telling yourself.
Yeah. You'll feel like you got maced in the eyes now. So, one new thing that's been going on with Angry Nerd stuff is you've been having your stuff up on Amazon early before YouTube. So tell us about how did that come into play? How's that been going?
Oh, great! Yeah, we have a lot of people working behind the scenes to get all that stuff up there. Big process. So all the seasons of Nerd are on Amazon, and they're free too, just like YouTube.
Yeah.
It has ads, but if you have Amazon Prime, there's no ads. So, and it's just another option to watch the video. So, if you have Amazon Prime, you're all set. They always come out on YouTube the next week. So, there will be a new episode coming out real soon.
Yeah.
And sooner than you think. And then it'll be on YouTube in a week.
Okay, very cool, very exciting.
It'll be on Amazon, then it'll be on YouTube.
Yes. So, your newest episode was Earthbound. That was really cool, really ambitious, really informative, and one of the rare instances of you going in depth on a game. It's not a bad game, but it's really interesting. Are there any other plans to do something like that? More games that are strange but good for the nerd to tackle? Any ideas?
Yeah, I would like to. I mean, I don't know what we're trying to do next in that vein. Like next one's going to be it's a real basic episode. Going back to the classic format. But yeah, the Earthbound one, it actually kind of started as an idea it started as just to play it for me. I played it on the Super Nintendo Classic since that came out, and I was just trying to, because people say Earthbound's like, oh, it's one of the best games ever, and I'm like, well, I have to try it then,
Yeah.
And I've always been interested in it since I was a kid, like seeing it in Nintendo Power, it always looked interesting to me, but I was too busy, I'm playing Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy III, and you can only do so much at the time. So this was one I needed to catch up on. And then when I went so far with it, and I'm recording it anyway, I'm like, well, I should probably do some kind of review when this is all done with. And at first I thought that review might just be just not a nerd review, but just a James Rolfe review, just kind of here's this game and here's just some interesting things about it that I want to talk about. And then as it went on, it's like, well, I really think I can make something more of this, so it should be a nerd episode. So that was the whole evolution of that.
And it became the longest one ever, right?
Yeah, by complete accident. I guess that's what happens when you pick an RPG.
Yeah. And when you have personal interest in playing it.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to see new episodes of What's BS. I can think of no better reason for that series to come back than for the Northeast snow in Buffalo, New York. Of course, you know all about that garbage, which that's over now, thankfully. But I'm wondering, are there any other kind of older series, maybe some semi-dormant ideas you've thought about bringing back, like you know, there was like book reviews you did for a while, top tens, board games, of course. Is there ever any older dormant ideas you haven't thought about bringing back?
I don't think so, actually. I think about like monkey cheese. I'd like to bring that back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, monkey cheese 5. I think it's 5. Yeah, it hasn't.
Yeah.
But I get asked about board games all the time.
Right.
Board games was like one of my favorite things I ever did. But I wrapped it up. Like I wrapped up the story. Like that's where it ended. I actually do have more ideas for it. Like I could go backwards. I was thinking of doing like a prequel to board games. But the effort to do it, you know, it would take up more than half the year, and I have to be very selective about what I do. So instead, I want to use that time to start getting an original horror film started. I've started writing it. I have a script. So I'm just not totally satisfied with it yet. You know, I go back and you revise things. So that's what I'm trying to do, and then like that'll be a long process to get something like that started.
Okay, that's actually another thing I was really interested in. Those, you know, they're like personal, nerd projects, such as like, you know, feature films. I know you mentioned maybe wanting to do a horror movie for your next feature. Is there anything more, any context you can give us about, you know, you just talked about it a little bit, but just like what it would be, any kind of broad concepts you can tell us?
I think it'll always have a theme of nostalgia in some way. Like there's always, you know, somebody trying to go back to their past. Like there's always that in there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Board James has that. You know, he's like, you know, he's obsessed with these old themes from the past, and he's a little nuts. So it kind of has that a little bit of Board James in it. It has a little bit of Jersey Odysseys in it.
Yeah.
A little bit of like Cinemaphobia, if you've seen that. Like all the things I've ever done, it kind of just has a little bit of, you know, you'll notice little echoes of all different kind of horror-related things I've done before.
That's really cool. Because then, and it sounds like you would develop a really distinct style from that would really stand out from other, like, independent horror movies.
Yeah, like
So
it's not
really
going, like it's not really like a special effect movie. It's not really like a gory horror movie. It's kind of just like a slow, like atmospheric horror film, and trying to set it in like a confined space, as much as possible. Like, you know, economic reasons, like try to do less locations.
Okay.
Because the Angry Video Game Nerd movie was insane. Every scene is a different location.
Right.
So this is I'm trying to do like a, you know, more like a closed space kind of horror film.
You could call it The Room. I don't think that's.
Oh, there's never been a movie called The Room.
Yeah. So, in a few minutes, if anyone wants to ask this man a question, we have a microphone right at the back there. If anyone, just start lining up there and stand up, and you can ask the nerd a question. And in the meantime, give everybody a chance to go up if anyone wants to ask a question. And why don't you tell us a little bit in the meantime about the recent interview you got to do with Mr. Joe Bob Briggs of Monster Vision?
Yeah.
How did that happen, and how did that go?
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah, we interviewed Joe Bob Briggs at Screenwave. We took him there. We filmed like a 2-hour interview with him. And I have a lot of editing, so I don't know. I mean, he's hard to edit because everything he says it was just like watching Monster Vision like right next to you. It was the whole time. Yeah, like I remember the moment I realized it was like how surreal this was when I started off and we're talking to him, and he's talking about, like, you know, back when he was writing reviews, there was some other guy who would write reviews and about movies, and he said, well, he doesn't just write about the movies, he writes about what went on in the movie theaters, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. And I was like, holy shit.
That wasn't a character, that's who he is.
Oh, well, it's like the nerd very much. It's like exaggerated. He's more low key in real life, but he definitely when the cameras go, he gets into Joe Bob.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Nice. So and that isn't up yet, right?
Not yet. We're still working, because actually it's going to come out after. Well, I don't think after, close to when his new show comes out.
Okay.
So he's got a show on Shudder which is, well, I mean, it's like that. Things could change, so I don't want to like say anything like about the date or anything like that. Because we're not 100%, locked down with it. But I mean, I'm not involved with it. It's just I was just promoting it because hey, Joe Bob's coming back. So
yeah, really exciting. But that'll be on Shudder. That's online. Platform. Yeah. So okay, look forward to that. In the meantime, please ask James Rolfe your question.
Please. Too short for the mic.
I was going to ask, in the horror movies that you're writing, will any of your personas or characters that you come up with, will they, elements of them just be in there, or is it going to be completely serious?
Yeah, it'll be pretty serious. It's not, there's no characters in it from anything else. It might kind of be set in the same universe as the Jersey Odysseys, though. It seems like it kind of fits in with that kind of world, so it might be connected to it. So that's a possibility.
Thank you. Next.
One of my favorite things that you talked about is the film American Movie. Have you gotten a chance to meet Mark Borchardt? And if you have, what's he like?
Oh, I have not, no, but I'd love to. Yeah, he would be really awesome to talk to.
Did you dress up as him for Halloween?
Yeah, I dress up, I've impersonated him so many times, so yeah, I don't know how he feels about that, but I hope he'd be flattered. Yeah.
Hey, James, thanks for coming here. First of all, welcome to Buffalo, and it's great being able to interact with you a little bit.
Oh, thanks.
So my question is about one of my favorite parts about the channel. It's been Monster Madness, and my question, and I apologize if this is something you touched on at some point, but for someone who's trying to maybe become introduced to classic horror movies, do you have any suggestions for like a box set or something like that to be like an introduction to
Oh,
those
it's
kind of
hot.
movies?
Well, I mean, it depends how much you want to spend on it. I mean, you could probably stream most of it, but like, if you're looking for like something to have to, like a physical media, then the Blu-rays and the Universal monsters are great. They released them they re-released them a lot in like all different packages, but every time the latest one is always something better about it. Because they just released one where it's a box set of like Dracula and then a box of Frankenstein and Wolfman, and they each have like all the sequels on them. And I love that what they finally did is that Frankenstein meets the Wolfman will be on like it's on the Frankenstein set, but it's also on the Wolfman set. So it's not like, oh, you have to, because who cares if it's on both? It's like it's just for the convenience. So you can choose what you want. Yeah, and they're in Blu-ray. They look amazing. So yeah, that's my recommendation.
Thanks.
Hi James, I was wondering at what point in planning a nerd episode, like it becomes more like a Addams Family or a Batman one, where you decide like, okay, I'm going to be in a full Batman suit for this episode.
Yeah, it's only if it's because I'm so aware of how much extra time it takes to do it, so I know what I'm getting into pretty much. Like I know it's always kind of tough to add it, so I always just do it if it seems necessary, if it seems like it'll be funny, and like certain games inspire that. It's like, oh well, this would be great if we had this happen, so we'll see where it goes.
Thank you.
How's it going? Hey. My question is, I'm an aspiring content creator myself, and I'm sure that maybe at least somebody in here might be doing that too. It's gotten harder recently especially on YouTube, for people to make any kind of decent headway in that direction. I was just wondering what kind of advice you might give to somebody in that situation.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's just going to always be something new. Something new is always going to come out. New technology. So it's like just keep doing what you're doing. Go try all different things, and then eventually you'll be in the right place at the right time. Thanks.
Hey, so know we've all watched you play games for years and years and years, and I've always wondered, like, do you have a personal favorite for a video game system? Like, if you had to have one system and only that?
Oh yeah, Super Nintendo, my favorite.
Good choice.
Yeah, thanks.
Everyone's high.
Hey James. Hey, as someone who has a lot of fun with the Ghostbusters series, do you think that if you ever got the chance to direct a reboot from a true fan's perspective, do you think you'd want to take that?
If so, from a fan's perspective, what would I do with it? I wouldn't want to.
That's
I
fair.
don't think there's really anything left. I'm not opposed to making more, but it just would have been nice to have the originals in there just to pass the torch instead of being. That isn't the point. It's more like it being set in the same universe. Just instead of it being like, oh, they're in there, but their characters are different, and their cameos. But I also feel like at the same time, you can't get Harold Ramis back, so it's kind of just too late. And they were talking about it for so long, so many years. You just wish they would have done it earlier. And it just seemed like it just took so long. You kept hearing like, oh, Bill Murray doesn't want to do it, so they're just pulling out of the whole thing. And it's like, oh, they're going to go ahead without Bill Murray. And it's just like, well, what's going on? So I don't know. I would say that they just continue it, what they're doing now, but maybe just have it like, I really don't know.
Some more
Then
connection.
how would you make it like where, like they step into another portal and then there's an alternate dimension where there's like, the originals are there, kind of like with Spock and Star Trek.
Yeah.
And then they pass the torch properly, and then then they can continue, and I don't know. It's not only.
Okay, thank you everybody for your questions, and if there's no more, we'll move on to something else. We got a couple cool little surprises going on. Now, James, did you want to take it from here and kind of tell us about what we're going to hear next?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm writing a book. It's an autobiography, just my whole life story. It's kind of like if you've seen Cinemassacre 200, Dragon in My Dreams, it's kind of the same vein of that, just a little more elaborate, more detail. And it's about life stuff in general, but mainly about filmmaking and all the trials and adventures that have happened through that, and just sharing like crazy stories. So it's pretty chronological. I like that. It's kind of like a timeline of my life. It starts when I'm a kid. So I'll read you the first like 10 minutes of it. I think it takes like about 10 minutes to read this. No idea when it'll be published or anything like that, but it's something big I'm working on. But it begins with the innocent times, just being a kid, and this is where all the imagination started. So this is basically it. I've got to dig it out here for you.
Yeah, I know you had mentioned being inspired by, when you had done like book reviews, being really inspired by like Robert Rodriguez and like the books that he had done. So was the inspiration kind of taken from that?
Rebel Without a Crew, yeah, absolutely. There you go. So I was inside my baby carriage, being pushed through the park by my mother. I watched the tree branches passing over me, a canopy of pretty leaves, with patches of sky. All was quiet and serene. Next I found myself in a tiny pool with water up to my waist. I splashed around playfully. The water was showering down from the mouth of a dragon made of concrete towering above me. Its long green neck rose maybe 10 feet from the pool, with dorsal fins going up its back to the top of its head in a mohawk fashion. I stared blindly through hollow eyes, its nostrils flaring as water drizzled out its red lips. Otherwise, it was a typical scene. There were slides, seesaws, swings, and picnic tables. Everything you'd expect to see in a park. But something was missing. There were no other kids, not a single person in sight, just the dragon looming over me. Where's my mom? I was all alone. I turned around, scanning the distance. There was nothing but trees enclosing the scene. I could hear nothing, not a single bird, no dogs barking. And then one lone sound pierced the silence. Bells from a nearby church, as if time was ticking down. Something was about to happen. I looked up. The dragon's head was much closer than before, its neck lurching forward, its eyes fixated on me. Its mouth open, showing off rows of sharp teeth. I screamed, and then everything went pitch black. I woke up, crying into my pillow. My mom came into the room and turned on the light. She told me I was just having a nightmare. I was only a baby and hadn't yet even grasped the concept of what a nightmare is. There's a first time for everything. Whether or not it actually was my first nightmare, the truth remains it's the oldest event from my life that I can still remember. It was my earliest known experience with the haunting power of imagination, something that would eventually become my most valuable tool. I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1980, and the first years of my life were spent in agonizing fear of the ghastly terrors that lurk inside the mind, such as monsters in the closet. Most people seem to have had at least one recurring nightmare. For me, it was definitely the dragon of the park. The truth is, it wasn't just a nightmare. The park was a real place, and the dragon water spout actually existed. It was in the Fox Chase area of Philadelphia, a few blocks from my parents' apartment, my first home. Nearby was the church where I was baptized, though I was never religious. That would probably explain the toll of bells in the dream. Not too far was the hospital where I was born. The park seemed to be the central location where my true personality was actually born. Mom tells me I played next to the dragon on a daily basis. I wasn't afraid of it, I loved it. But I guess things change when the lights go out at night. The odd thing is that my memory of the nightmare is more vivid than the real place. My brain insists the dragon was really alive. Well then, why did I keep going back to the park? I guess we're drawn to the things that frighten us. Another major recurring nightmare I had was E.T. from the Spielberg film. But in my dreams, it was the dead, chalk-colored E.T. from the scene where he's dying. This evil zombie E.T. stood about 20 feet tall, and his neck could stretch infinitely. My bedroom was on the second floor. He would stand outside and stare through my window right at me. His neck would stretch into the room, his face coming closer. I'd hide underneath my blankets and pray he'd go away. And I'd hear him whisper, "I'm going to kill you." I had another recurring nightmare about a pair of walking legs in black stockings that kept sneaking into my house with the silent grace of a cat. Its name was the Slock. Its sole intent was to destroy the washing machine. Yeah, seriously. I revised the dream to make it sound better, but that would defeat the whole purpose of the book. What happened is what happened. Another recurring dream involved a 50-foot tall chicken that was running around my neighborhood with its head cut off. I was always running from it, and I could never understand why my mind had to manifest such horrible things. They came out of nowhere. I never saw a horror movie until I was much older. I always went to bed with my lights on and often would sleep in my parents' room. Sometimes I was too afraid to sleep at all for fear of what kind of terrors I'd meet inside my whimsical brain. Even when I was awake, I would have vivid hallucinations. My dad, trying to save the electric bill, would shut off my light at some point during the night while I was asleep. I would wake up disoriented and see all kinds of gruesome creatures surrounding me with their eyeballs hanging out of their sockets, their jaws broken off with cockroaches coming out of their ears. Arms were reaching out to me, tongues were reaching out to me, everything was reaching out to me. I would be too terrified to get out of bed and reach for the light switch. All I could do was hide under the blankets and scream. I remember one night staring into the darkness of my closet, laying awake for hours, seeing ghosts dancing around. They had a slimy texture that emitted a radiant greenish blue glow. It's hard to describe. Try to imagine if you covered a sock in glow-in-the-dark paint. Once I got out of bed to take a closer look, I looked right at the ghost, only inches from my face. It still looked real. I went back to bed and kept an eye on it until morning. When the morning rays of sun lit the room, the illusion finally faded as the ghost morphed into a t-shirt. I started to accept that my mind was running wild and just sat back and enjoyed the show. These ghosts were fun. The closet was their stage. Their performance would last until dawn, and when they'd all turned back into action figures, stuffed animals, and clothing. I was fascinated how my mind could trick me into seeing such things. The big question, how could I make other people see the same thing I was seeing? My parents moved out of their apartment and left Philadelphia to move into a house in southern New Jersey. It was a random place, could have been anywhere. It was known as the Pine Barrens. There's nothing but forests, and probably out of such boredom spawned several urban legends, most notably the Jersey Devil and the Atco Ghost. But I wasn't aware of these famous tales yet. I was busy making up my own things. We lived on a quiet, dead-end street, and because there was hardly any traffic, all the neighborhood boys and girls would roller skate and play in the middle of the road. It might have been just an ordinary place, but to me, this was the paradise where all my creativity blossomed. I can't take for granted my parents gave me the perfect childhood. They gave me a dog and many cats, and ultimately a sister who was my best friend, my enemy, and everything all at once. She eventually turned out to be the opposite of me, an athletic, popular girl, proving the amazing range of my parents. I was the nerdy one, not athletic in the slightest. I tried playing street hockey with my friends. My reflexes were too slow. I chased the puck around, always a step behind, and then I stopped and stared at the stick. I held it up, envisioning it as a sword. I looked up to the street lamp, its long pole becoming the neck of a dragon, and its lamp, the eye. I guess it was a cyclops dragon. I told my friends to use their swords. We must defend ourselves, and they all started playing along. Behind my house was a field where no crops grew. I led my friends through, slashing weeds, which we imagined to be goblins. We journeyed all the way across the forest, and at the end there was a lake where there existed an actual shipwreck. A tiny boat, partially submerged, poking up from the surface. This is where our imaginary quest ended as our collaborative heroic efforts defeated an evil wizard who threw fireballs from the boat. We deflect them back at him, sinking him forever in the lake. Every day was ripe with imagination. We played as soldiers, cowboys, and used plastic construction toys to build a life-size submarine, a time machine, a weather device to create tornadoes. I had a fascination with tornadoes and wanted to see one in real life. I was also terrified of them, and they persisted in my nightmares too. Something about danger intrigued us. One of my friends told me about Satan and hell. We wanted to see if it was real, so we began digging a hole in the ground. A huge undertaking to reach the deepest bowel of the earth, but we were determined. We kept digging until we could stand in it with our heads below ground level. And that's when we started to get scared. Well, if Satan was real, what would he do to us? So we jumped out and frantically covered the hole. When I got an audio cassette recorder for Christmas, we began recording our stories on tape. It was my favorite toy so far. We invented voices for different characters like Fuji Woogie, Funky Monkey, and Ducky Poop. This is where we exercised our toilet humor as my friends shared every obscene word they knew of. One of them told me to say kid backwards. I did, and then they all laughed. I couldn't figure out why, so then I asked my parents. Oh boy. Next came photography. I borrowed a cheap camera from my parents and went outside to snap pictures of my friends making funny faces and capturing motion like jumping, karate kicks, and spraying water guns. Freezing action was a fascination of mine, and back then you had to take pictures to the store only after you finished the whole roll of film to get them developed. Sometimes we'd wait a week to see the results. Often pictures would come back dark or blurry, or the lens was covered by a finger. Photos became another medium to tell stories about heroic warriors who had to do battle with vicious creatures and evil ogres, all made from ordinary objects. A lawnmower with a blanket thrown over it was a goblin. A crinkled pool cover was a blob monster, and a green sandbox lid was a slime monster. My dog PJ, a half collie, half German shepherd, often appeared in the photos, playing with us, but within the realm of the stories, she was the king of the beasts, the ultimate in horror. When she rolled on her back and spread her limbs, she became known as the Four-Winged Terror. I compiled all the photos into an album, which I made into a storybook. Since we used bright neon Nerf swords as the hero's main weapon, resembling lightsabers or lasers, I ended up calling the story Laser Fighting, which had a few sequels. I put the photos in sequence and wrote captions almost like a comic book. Sometimes I drew monsters in the photos, or projectiles, or impact graphics like bam, kapow. in a way, I was learning the basics of film editing at an early age. To fill in the images, and I didn't care how recognizable they were. The White House became the four-winged terrorist castle. Later, I learned about the term stock footage, meaning in movies to insert previously existing footage as a cost-cutting method used excessively by Ed Wood. So there you go, there's a sample. That's how the book begins. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for bringing that. That was a real privilege. Yeah, you guys enjoy that? Yeah. And we'll look forward to more news about that in the future, I assume. And as if that wasn't enough, James, you brought something else for everybody here today, a world premiere. So what is this that we're gonna cap off the con with?
Yeah, you want to see a new nerd video? All right, well, it's Behind You. Behind You is a new Angry Nerd episode. And this will be on Amazon coming out soon. So I'll give everybody a chance to turn around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the last panel of the day, so you can move your chairs around, it doesn't really matter. And I have to use a trash can to hold up the projector because they don't have a projector, so they brought one. So thank you guys for bringing the projector, that really helped.
Projects you've ever done. See, look, now they have to turn back around. Of all the projects you've done, and maybe like not counting the AVGN movie, what's something that you might consider your favorite, you have the most pride in?
Oh, yeah. It might be Dragon in My Dreams.
Yeah.
I actually did I did a couple of videos. I did a top 10 non-AVGN videos.
Yeah.
Top 10 AVGN videos. And I know the nerd one was Rob the Robot, and the non-AVGN one, I think, was Dragon in My Dreams.
Okay.
But I could always be right. I could always contradict myself.
Okay, but yeah, that personal kind of, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I will be at my booth again in row 400, and that'll be the last chance to get some signatures or buy some crappy games from me or anything that I have over there.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for coming, and thank you, James, for coming to Buffalo for Nickel City.
Yeah, absolutely.